Hello, my name is Mr. C. I'll be addressing 6th grade math today, Content Standards 6 RPA 1. Today's lesson will be talking about ratios and proportions. And if you recall anything about ratios and proportions back in the 5th grade, they were kind of like fractions. And so we'll be using kind of a fraction way of deciphering and understanding fractions and proportions. We'll be using the word to in reference, as you'll be seeing in this quote in question. And then you'll also have a colon in reference to proportions and ratios. The objective today is students will demonstrate their understanding by the concept of ratio by using the ratio language to describe relationships between quantities. And when we think of quantities, we think of differences in numbers. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. Now, one of the tools we'll be using is a T-chart, all right? And now the T-chart literally looks like a lowercase t or a cross. So let's draw a T-chart, all right? And then this will help us kind of decipher the question, all right? So there are 3 birds total. If you look at the picture below, there are 3 birds, 3 finches. What is the ratio of beaks to feet? So we're going to count the total amount of beaks to feet, all right? But first, let's label. If you notice, it's saying beaks to feet. So that means we're going to label it exactly the same as it is read, all right? So right here, we're going to write beaks to feet. Okay. Now, in the picture, let's count the total amount of beaks to feet. So there are 1, 2, 3 beaks. So we're going to put 3 beaks to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet. 6 feet. All right? So 6 feet. So there are a total of 3 beaks to 6 feet. All right? Yet we're not done. If we were to rewrite this as maybe a colon, we would look like 3:6. Let's write it as 2. So 3, 2, 6. All right. Now the final one and the third one, which would be 3/6. So there are 3 beaks over 6. So with that being said, we need to reduce or simplify to an even lower term if we were to find how many beaks per 1 bird. All right, so now we want to find how many beaks does 1 bird have to feet. All right, now that's easy. We can simply just look at 1 bird and say 1 beak per 2 feet, right? Or we can reduce this, and 3/6 reduces down to 1/2. So we can just simply say 3/6 divided by 3/3, which would be 1, equals 1/2, or 1/2. All right, so that's the answer to this. So 1/2, or 1, 2, 2, or 1:2 per 1 bird. If we were to rewrite this 3 different ways to this question, we would write it as 3/6, 3/6, and 3:6. However, it's always important to consider simplifying or reducing. All right? Now, let's look at the next picture. So let's go ahead and erase this. All right. So in the next picture, we'll scroll on this computer right here. We'll see a cow. Now, a cow has how many feet to a head? So let's write that down. There is 1 cow. How many feet to better way of putting it would be, what is the ratio or rate of feet to head on a cow? Right, now if we recall at the example with the bird, you'll see that we literally counted the head to feet. So let's do that again, right? So in this picture you'll see one cow, and we're doing feet to heads. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 feet, correct? So let's write it down on the T-chart again. So there is feet to heads, right? So we're going to count. We counted 4 feet, and obviously in a normal cow there's one head. So we're going to suggest that we just put one head, right? So let's rewrite it as, let's say, using the word 2. So 4, 2, 1. Now let's use the fraction. 4 over 1. Now, we're going to get a little bit more complicated, all right? Let's switch it up. Because now we have 4 over 1, and simplifying that would just say 4 per 1, 4, 2, 1, right? Let's change it up. Let's do something different now, all right? Let's look at our hands, something physical, right? Continuing to use the T-chart, right? So if we have hands, right? Saying that everyone here was born with hands, okay? Hands to fingers. So let's write it down. What's the ratio of hands to fingers? Right? Hands to fingers. Let's count. So there are 1, 2 hands. Let's count our fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. All right, so how many hands do we have? A student would say 2. So we're going to go say, rewrite the T-chart, hands to fingers. So 2 hands, 10 fingers. Now let's write it as the colon, right? So we're going to say, let's kind of write it right below to keep ourselves organized. So 2, 2, 10 would be our 2, and then the colon would be 2 colon 10. The fraction would be 2 over 10. And if we were to simplify, saying how many fingers per one hand, right? So let's go to another step. This is different. This one. How many fingers per one hand we would write? Well, 2 over 10 and reduce that to make it easy. So we can reduce by 2 because 2 can go into 2 one time, right? So we would say 1 over 5. Okay, so 1 hand per 5 fingers. Okay, now in order to assess whether the students are grasping this information, I'll be walking around the classroom and then I'll call on specific students to see if they're grasping the concept. I'll even have them count, but for the assessment I'll be using marbles at the table, and each student will have in a group a bowl of marbles, and there'll be different counts, but in this particular one there are 6 white marbles. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there are 4 dark marbles. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So now let's get into the assessment, how I would be able to judge whether or not the students are grasping this information. And so let's go ahead and erase all of this. We'll be continuing to use the T-chart as our tool. It's a simple tool and it's not overly complicated to keep the students grasping this new concept. So in a bowl, 6 white marbles.